Hello, everyone. Welcome to KTAL News Now. I'm your host, Anthony Mocklin, and today is Tech Tuesday. It's a lot of people's favorite segment of the week where we dive into some tech news around the world and in the region. And with the holidays, especially, there's a lot of tech that's on sale for Black Friday, I'm sure. If you're trying to score some deals, you can find all of the information needed on our website at ktalnews.com, which is where we stream this show every single day, Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. on ktalnews.com. And if you haven't yet, be sure to visit our YouTube at KTAL News, where you can find all of our previous editions of KTAL News Now. But today on Tech Tuesday, we have a lot to cover regarding new technology that's affecting the world. And one of those, in specific, kind of specific to the United States, is the idea of porch pirates. Now, if you are ordering a lot of stuff online and hopefully trying to score some deals on Black Friday, like I mentioned, you're probably ordering a lot of stuff online and having it delivered to your house. But there is a rampant issue right now among the country where thieves are taking the packages from people's front porches. And to learn more about how to combat this and what is being done to stop it, I got to speak with an Amazon spokesperson to hear more.
I want to remind you that the vast majority of Amazon deliveries do arrive on safely to the households, but we do have some bad actors out there that are going to want to ruin your holidays. So I want to share some tips with you. First tip: make sure to pick up an Amazon pickup location if you plan to be out of town or you're working late. You have 25,000 locations to choose from. When you're placing your order on your app or on the website, the Amazon website, make sure to pick a location that's convenient for you, whether it be an Amazon locker, a hub station, or your nearest Whole Foods counter. We can do that for you. Also, another location thing that we have available for any customer is real-time tracking, where you can track your packages as they're being delivered. So if you go on the website or the app, you can see how many stops before it gets to your home, and you can plan accordingly to get there before your package arrives, or have someone that you trust pick that package up for you.
And when it comes to the numbers with the holiday season, obviously there's a lot more packages being ordered for gifts for Christmas and other holidays. What data do y'all have on your end that would, I guess, shows just how much of a surge is happening when it comes to porch piracy?
Well, porch piracy is a problem that happens year round, not just during the holidays. So we actually have campaigns, and we're working with the law enforcement throughout the United States. With the national, this year we're partnering with the National Sheriff's Association, where we get to work with 3,000 jurisdictions across the United States to share these tips that we have for you about preventing porch piracy. So we're on this case year round. But we want to remind folks that if they're ever a victim of crime, they suspect that their package has been stolen, call the police. It is a crime. It needs to be reported, and this actually helps us because we get to track where the problem areas are. Also, contact customer service. We have live agents available 24/7 to help you.
And in your opinion, do you think there's any specific cause for it? Like, is there a certain packaging that's more enticing to thieves that might want to steal it?
I have no data on that. All I can say, like, I want to remind that this is a problem that's industry wide. So anybody, any company that delivers to the household has this type of problem. What Amazon tries to do is try to warn our consumers to think ahead, be prepared, and be able to tell what's an imposter from a real driver that delivers on behalf of Amazon. Make sure that if you have a ring camera, monitor who comes to your home. And there's also a tip that we have where an Amazon driver delivering a driver that delivers on behalf of Amazon will never knock on your door or ask you to sign for a package unless it's prearranged. So that should be a red flag right there. And next, if you don't expect a delivery that day, then it's probably something that you should worry about.
And you mentioned that there are options available with customer support if a package is stolen. What else can people do if that happens?
The best thing to do is just go on the website where you ordered your package, select the product that's missing, and then follow the prompts, which basically helps get customer service attached to that product so they could do all the work on doing the research on it. For more information of all the porch pirate tips that we just provided and more that we have available, we recommend that folks visit us at aboutamazon.com to get the latest information regarding this campaign and also to learn the latest Black Friday deals.
And with Amazon specifically, you mentioned that they were developing better ways to prevent this in terms of technology. What are some of those options?
One thing that we like is the real time tracking package where you could track your package as it's coming to be delivered to your household. There's also where you could request an actual photo being taken of the package as it's delivered to your home. And then there's also things that you could customize your delivery where you tell them what day of the week you want it to be delivered. That way you can meet with be able to be there when you receive the package. So there are plenty of ways on how to use our technology to customize your order.
And when it comes to camera doorbells like Ring, you mentioned, how useful is footage like that when it comes to resolving these cases?
It helps identify who's at your door. And also, you have two-way communication with at your door. So it's a neat tool to have, and it helps us identify who's at your door, what time of day, what were they driving. So it's a neat tool to have.
And where did you say we can get more information again?
Yes, you can visit us at aboutamazon.com.
And is there anything that I didn't ask you today that you wanted to highlight or touch more on?
Just make sure that when you're expecting deliveries, to leave the light on for our drivers because it gets pretty dangerous in the dark. And if it's snowing in your part of the world, make sure to shovel that driveway. That way, there's no accidents on the way up.
And if you want more information about how to keep your packages safe this holiday season, visit aboutamazon.com or visit our website at ktalnews.com to learn more. Now, when it comes to pollution, specifically littering, it is greatly affecting the environment, particularly in our oceans, where marine litter is a major, major problem that is affecting entire ecosystems where plastics that are thrown into the ocean or large bodies of water are breaking down into microplastics, which then break down and release chemicals, and that gets into the food chain in the water. Now, we don't know the ramifications and full effects of microplastics in humans, but it's safe to say it's not a good thing. Now, one company is working to change that, where if you look at the data from 1950 to 2020, over 32 million metric tons of plastic were put into the ocean. And that is the equivalent of the weight of 200,000 blue whales, which is pretty insane to try to even fathom that there's that much plastic just sitting in our waters, in our great, big, beautiful planet Earth. And they are working to change that because if nothing is done by the year 2040, that number could rise to 76 million tons of plastic. So we really need to start working to do so. And one company has already started taking that initiative. And this company is a group of researchers and students who are developing an autonomous robot that can help detect and retrieve plastics from the ocean. It dives down into the water, and using a camera system, it tries to filter out what is and what are not plastics. It was trained on, I believe, over 7,500 images of what is plastic waste and what is not when it comes to the ocean, so that it does not grab a fish or the wrong thing. So it pretty much dives down and retrieves things from the ocean floor. And while the company is called the Smart Grapple, that is the robot's name. And this was developed by the Technical University of Munich in Germany. And they are using AI to identify the trash with a camera or using sonar if the water is pretty murky. And the way it does this, it has a four-fingered hand that grasps the plastic waste, and it can lift objects up to 3 feet wide and long, and up to 550 pounds worth of an object or items, which is pretty remarkable considering that is a lot of weight that they are just throwing up there pretty much. I mean, you'd see bodybuilders doing that. But the fact that this autonomous robot where no humans are in danger can do such a thing is pretty remarkable achievement. And it is also attached to a crane where the crane can also help it lift instead of having to make the robot swim all the way up with any object that might be 500 pounds. You never know what's on the bottom of the ocean floor. But once the object is identified, it actually creates a 3D display of the object to decide how to grasp it securely without dropping it. But it also has sensors implemented to ensure that it's not gripping the object too hard so that it breaks it into multiple pieces. It wants to ideally grab it and bring it back in one piece to help with cleanup efficiently instead of having to it accidentally breaks it apart or into multiple pieces and they start scattering everywhere. That's not what they want, so that's why those sensors are in place. And this whole project is part of an EU European Union funded project called Sea Clear 2.0. And this is comprised of 13 organizations across Europe, and this includes universities and underwater tech companies. So it is a very much a collaborative effort to help clear the plastic waste that plagues our oceans. And according to studies, most underwater litter retrieval is actually done by human beings and human divers. And this project coordinator, he said that they can't do that 24/7. So they're trying to ease the burden here a little bit with these robots. They said they're hopefully going to be ready for wide scale deployment between the years 2030 and 2033. So not too far on the horizon. Hopefully that process is sped up a little bit and we're able to hit that mark because if like I said before, if we don't do something by 2040, that number of plastics that will be present in the ocean will pretty much more than double. So we really have to avoid that. Hopefully these robots, while they won't be a solve all solution, they can help in specific regions where like harbors, for example, or natural reserves where there's a lot of ecosystems there and a lot of plastics that could be built up there. So they're doing everything that they can to help protect those environments. And like I said, it's not going to be a fix all solution. It will only temporarily stall a little bit of the process. But at the end of the day, we just have to be better about not just littering, but being mindful of where our waste is going. And if these companies, if somebody is just dumping plastics or trash into the ocean, they absolutely need to be held accountable because this cannot go on. Even though we do not know the ramifications of microplastics, it is a very concerning thing. Not to be all doom and gloom or anything, but just try to be mindful about taking care of the planet because it's the only one we've got. And that is very, very important it should be important to everybody. And, that's my soapbox with that. But speaking of outside of the earth, but something that will also affect the people on it, this company is a startup company called Reflect Orbital. They are planning to launch satellites in low Earth orbit that will reflect sunlight to the Earth's night side. So, whenever an area of the Earth is at nighttime, they plan to use the mirrors to give that region or area sunlight, which sounds pretty crazy, but there's not a lot of barriers that theoretically would prevent them from doing this because all they would need really is approval from the Federal Communication Commission. And they plan to launch their first experimental satellite next year, 2026. So it is right around the corner before they can potentially change the world. And it's crazy that this can even be done. Like I said, they only really need the FCC approval and a few $1 million or whatever. But it's just a very scary thing, and scientists are aware of that and have tried to stress this because they plan with these satellites that where they would have a mirror attached to each of them, where each mirror would cover around 3,500 square feet of an area where it would reflect that sunlight to. And this translates to essentially covering a 3 mile wide across radius of land that would get sunlight, which is pretty large for just one satellite being up there. And they plan to have an entire fleet of them essentially when it in the future. But according to their own technicalities and specs, a single reflector could make an area up to 4 times as bright as a full moon, which is insane considering that the sunlight is already being reflected off of the moon, but obviously these mirrors would be a lot closer than the moon, so it would be much, much brighter than regular moonlight. And their plan essentially is to extend daylight for energy generation, agriculture, and urban lighting. Now, astronomers, like I said, they have already warned that there could be catastrophic consequences with this. If you're not already aware that this is a bad idea, I'm going to go over why exactly it is. And if you don't think so, hopefully I'll change your mind, because this should be very, very scary. And if this does go through, because if even one mirror could be launched into orbit, this has the potential to blind not just telescope watchers and stargazers, but if it bends a certain way or like reflects the light a certain way, it can blind aircraft pilots and then cause very, very scary situations, potentially even crashes. So this could be, like that astronomer said, catastrophic for not just that area of the world, but the entire planet. And if they do plan to, if they end up getting approval to launch a full fleet of them across the night sky, stargazing would be pretty much impossible at that point because there would be no night sky to look up at anymore. And as I was saying, one startup company with the approval from the FCC and a few $1 million could potentially change the entire night sky for everyone living here. And that is very, very scary. Although, when it comes to testing, the physics of these mirrors are generally understood by scientists, but the engineering demands might not be met by it, and the technical requirements in order to do something like this. Because if you recall, back in the 90s, Russia tried the same thing and they had experienced technical difficulties and it ended up burning up on re-entry. So they already tried and failed once. We should probably heed that warning if I was them, but they're going to do what they want, obviously. But if this did work, it wouldn't necessarily yield the results that they intend, because they mentioned that they want to generate power and help agricultural farmers, whereas if they reflect the light, it is only a fraction as powerful as direct sunlight. So the upkeep with that on the limited amount of power that they would get from the reflected light would be very, very expensive in a world where energy costs are already rising with AI data centers and the consumption of water that they require. It's just, they just got to read the room here, because this is just the worst possible time, I think, to try something like this. But not only are the reflections present where it could blind the pilots and everything, but they're also vulnerable to debris. If you're not familiar with the amount of things that we launched into space over the course of the last half century or so, there has pretty much been a debris belt that has surrounded the Earth, where all this broken off pieces and everything that's accumulated, pieces of asteroids, everything has accumulated to kind of cover low Earth orbit. So when people launch things out of Earth, not only do they have to account for the trajectory, they also have to pick a time where they would perfectly avoid all of this debris that is covering the Earth. So it is a very dangerous affair whenever we launch anything into space. And these mirrors are no different. They would be vulnerable to this debris, and they can if something gets hit, it can cause uncontrollable spinning and flashing and just reflect everywhere. And that would just not be good for the people that are on Earth or pilots in the sky. So, But I don't think that's, hopefully this won't come to pass, but the momentum here does not seem to be stopping because another startup, if you read some of the headlines in the last few days or so, another startup is trying to implement a plan to block out sunlight completely in order to help slow global warming. And now this startup wants to, it originally started as Stardust Solutions. That was the name of the company. And they're planning to release, their initial plan with Stardust was to release millions of reflective particles to dim the sunlight and cool the planet off a little bit. Now, while this would work temporarily, it wouldn't solve the problem, because if the sunlight comes back and the Earth is cooling down and then has to reverse course and do a complete 180, that could be catastrophic for not just environments, but for the the Arctic with all the ice caps melting, and it's just not a great idea. And for decades, scientists theorized that this could be done, where you essentially put this dust cloud around the Earth to temporarily reduce the temperature. But this would destabilize weather patterns and food supplies. It could just lead to drastic, catastrophic consequences like the mirrors. And this process is unofficially called solar geoengineering. And that's what it's referred to in the scientific community. And they are trying desperately to figure out ways to help reverse climate change and global warming before it's too late. And while this is not so much a valiant effort, it just shows we're running out of options here, because it's getting pretty dire when it comes to global warming and rising sea levels. It's affecting everything. There's much more severe natural disasters and flooding, fires. I mean, you saw the Palisades fire in California. It's just very scary. Again, not to be doom and gloom. I'm not trying to be that, but something has to be done clearly before it's too late. But when it comes to regulations, there are almost no international laws, much like the Space Mirror project. There's a lot of leeway when it comes to getting stuff like this approved. And they've already raised, I think it's over $75 million in funding for this project. And earlier this month, Elon Musk on Twitter echoed this same sentiment, where he said that in theory, you could put a large solar powered constellation of satellites in Earth's orbit to try to block out the sun and slow the global warming down. And he said that these would be AI powered, and they would make tiny adjustments to how much energy from the sun actually reaches us on Earth. And again, this just sounds like a horrible idea, in my opinion, but you never know. It's this dude's about to be a trillionaire, and there's no real regulation. So who knows, and if anything or anyone is going to stop him. But it's my belief that one person or one startup company shouldn't be able to change the climate for the entire world just because of money, or you just get approved with a certain company. But I digress. That's my soapbox for today on Tech Tuesday. But if you want to hear more technology related news, visit our website at ktalnews.com. We have plenty other local breaking and trending topics from around the area. And if you haven't yet, visit our YouTube page at KTAL News to find all of our previous editions of KTAL News Now. We have our last week's Tech Tuesday. We have Football Fridays with the college football playoffs ramping up, and a lot of people and teams vying for spots in the playoff. It's going to come down to the wire for sure. It's anyone's game at this point, although Ohio State is the consensus favorite at the moment. It is college football at the end of the day. Anything could happen. But to find all of that and more, you can visit our YouTube page at KTAL News. And we stream every day, Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. on KTALnews.com. But for now, I'm Anthony Mocklin. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for joining us.